So this is the Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. It was comments at the personal and the political panel, the Second Sex Conference, October 29th, 1979 by Audre Lorde. So there's a short paper, and I think this is a classic text. So we'll see how it goes. But as always, feel free to comment along the way, and I will try to explain it the best I can. I'm happy to see you, Ariston. I was happy, like I said, I was happy that your trip went well, or well enough, as it were. So yeah, I wish you the best of luck with that endeavor. All right, and here we go. I agreed to take part in a New York University Institute for the Humanities conference a year ago with the understanding that I would be commenting upon papers dealing with the role of difference within the lives of American women. Difference of race, sexuality, class, and age. For the absence of these considerations weakens any feminist discussion of the personal and the political. Never is a strong claim. Good, none of those true claims here. It is a particular academic arrogance to assume any discussion of feminist theory in this time and in this place without examining our many differences and without a significant input from poor women, black and third world women, and lesbians. And yet I stand here as a black lesbian feminist, having been invited to comment within the only panel at this conference where the input of black feminists and lesbians is represented. What this says about the vision of this conference is sad in a country where racism, sexism, and homophobia are inseparable. To read this program is to assume that lesbian and black women have nothing to say of existentialism, the erotic women's culture in silence, developing feminist theory, or heterosexuality and power. And what does it mean in personal and political terms when even the two black women who did present here were literally found at the last hour? What does it mean when the tools of a racist patriarchy are used to examine the fruits of that same patriarchy? It means that only the most narrow perimeters of change are possible and allowable. Alright, so this is 1979. A lot has changed since 1979. I don't know all the, my history is not great. Feminist epistemology has come a long way. I have personally heard people shit on feminist epistemology. I disagree. I actually think the classic epistemology that gets taught a lot of times is garbage. It's like a meme here that I hate justified true belief because I hate justified true belief. It needs to be shot and left out back and just given up. But the idea that knowledge is this abstract thing we can just, sort of reflect on. What is the justification for the knowledge? What is the justification for the truth? You just got to believe it. I think it's just bunk. It's a bad old theory. It was never good. There's even an argument to be made that when it was made up, it was just a straw man to begin with. Like Gettier made up a straw man. But the idea, a lot of things have happened since then, but yet, philosophy is still somewhat of an old boys network in some areas. And so it's still relevant. Chocolate says some is good, centering otherwise excluded voices, for example. Yeah. Sockness says I have a problem with the title, that it is kind of disempowering in a way. Gets too much meta ethics in this. Yeah. Again, 1979. The idea that this may sound dated, but maybe at the time it really wasn't. It's hard, that's 1979 is 46 years ago or something like that. So it's hard to, I can't give you a sense of what the idea was. Point of privilege, yes. All right, so let's continue. The absence of any consideration of lesbian consciousness or the consciousness of third world women leaves a serious gap within this conference and within the papers presented here. For example, in a paper on material relationships between women, I was conscious of an either-or model of nurturing, which totally dismissed my knowledge as a black lesbian. In this paper, there was no examination of mutuality between women, no systems of shared support, no interdependence as exists between lesbians and woman-identified women. Yet it is only in the patriarchal model of nurturance that women who attempt to emancipate themselves pay perhaps too high a price for the results, as this paper states. Yeah. Third world women. Did you? I just hear that? Yes, that's correct. It all costs money. You have to read stuff like this. I mean, this is a. This is not in my area. I do the weird arcane philosophy. I'm interested in like the metaphysics and philosophy of logic and stuff most people don't care about. Like that last paper on Frege's problem. I could have written that paper if I cared about that stuff. Like I already knew everything in that paper. I have not thought about demonstratives. If I had put time and effort into demonstratives, I could have just done that paper myself. Like that's the shit I know. They're going into Reagan Thatcher here. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, so this is a classic thing. So this one, I'm pretty sure. And so, yeah, we'll see. But like, I don't know. This is not my wheelhouse here. Okay. For women, the need and desire to nurture each other is not pathological but redemptive, and it is within that knowledge that our real power is rediscovered. It is this real connection which is so feared by a patriarchal world, for it is only under patriarchal structure that maternity is the only social power open to women. Yeah, so again, if everything you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So patriarchal power will make everything look like the same sort of thing. And in that patriarchy, then maternity is basically the only countervailing force to the patriarchy is just maternity. Conservative work certs on hands. Feel free, you can complain. I mean, you do have to be formulating arguments. I will say that. If you do not formulate arguments, then you will get slapped down. But like, if you can actually put arguments together, please do. But like, people come in here and give me bullshit, and I'm like, well, you have to make an argument, and they can't do it. They just do. They just keep saying their points over and over, and they get banned eventually. But like, yeah. Sockno says, I have a problem with it because it neglects the systemic abuse that women have had in those days. Also ignores the rights of women to have a participation in the economy like we live under capitalism, and capitalism is a master's tool. Yeah, well, again, this is a short paper. I think it's going to be over in a page or two. So, yeah. Like, it's not going to cover everything. And maybe that is a problem for this, but again, if you're thinking about the limitations of space here, then, you're not going to be comprehensive. Okay. Interdependency between women is the only way to freedom, which allows the I to be, not in order to be used, but in order to be creative. This is a difference between the passive be and the active being. You largely revered Margaret Thatcher? Yeah, you may be the only one here. Oh, Cosmo says, this is about women being supportive of women, girl power. Yeah. Advocating the mere tolerance of difference between women is the grossest reformism. It is a total denial of the creative function of difference in our lives. For difference must be not merely tolerated, but seen as a fund of necessary polarities between which our creativity can spark like a dialectic. Only then does the necessity for interdependency become unthreatening. Only within that interdependency of different strengths, acknowledged and equal, can the power to seek new ways to actively be in the world generate, as well as the courage and sustenance to act where there are no charters. Sakano, this is just a link to it. I don't know if this actually has what I have. Aris put it in chat earlier, if you want. Let me just grab it real fast. So I just was trying to get something to reference what it was. There we go. This is the link. You can find this online too. Like if you just Google the name. And this is the Master's Tools will never dismantle the Master's house. Okay. Yeah, so the point here is, so far, what it looks like is that there are alternate ways of supporting knowledge and autonomy and creativity than is traditionally given a whole lot of credit for, or not credit, appreciation, or even countenanced by traditional philosophy. So there's alternative ways of doing stuff. Now, the counterpoint is that usually the traditional philosophers, traditional or classic methods in philosophy can account for many things that it can throw a wide net. It can account for many things that the feminists do talk about. The question is priority a lot of times, and does it actually get everything in the end? Or is it just being reactionary and saying, oh yeah, we can also do that? And that's unfair. But the point here is that if you actually look at what people do in these circles, in the just sort of like old school epistemology or non-feminist literature, you're not going to find this discussion. Within the interdependence of mutual non-dominant differences lies that security which enables us to descend into the chaos of knowledge and return with true visions of our future, along with the concomitant power to effect those changes which can bring that future into being. Difference is that raw and powerful connection from which our personal power is forged. I mean, this is a rosy picture of what they're doing. There is no guarantee of success, of course, but it's like, that's very optimistic of you, Audre Lorde. As women, we have been taught to either ignore our differences or to view them as causes for separation and suspicion rather than as forces for change. Without community, there is no liberation, only the most vulnerable and temporary armistice between an individual and her oppression. But community must not mean a shedding of our differences, nor the pathetic pretense that these differences do not exist. Audre says she's talking to an audience of feminists who are talking about politics. Her first note is that the people invited to speak aren't representative of women and all their complexities, and her second note is that the values that the then present feminists were using were still shot through with patriarchy. Yeah, so, okay, good context to know. So it's mostly a political discussion. See, I mean, I come at this from the epistemology because that's all I know. I know even less politics than I do feminist epistemology. So, but like I do know some epistemology, and then I'd be like, oh, the feminist stuff is better than like the traditional stuff. So it's like, yes. But okay, so if this is politically tinged, then that's you have different sources of. You're not talking knowledge at that point, but I guess political power and how political organization. So that makes sense. So if you're still using, old structures in politics, you're still just going to get the same results. All right. Those of us who stand outside the circle of this society's definition of acceptable women, those of us who have been forged in the crucibles of difference, those of us who are poor, who are lesbians, who are black, who are older, know that survival is not an academic skill. Yeah, and so here's exactly what's coming up. What's happening is that you are getting knowledge from the non-academic sources, and then you value that knowledge because you realize that it was not accounted for in the classic theory. Audre says the epistemology point holds. How do we understand political challenges is not by listening to lots of voices, and how do we discover new values that aren't vulnerable to the old problems? Well, thank you for saving my butt, Audre. But like, yeah. But like, this is we're finally getting like to the sort of the theoretical point, is that the way you actually move forward is not always going to be an academic thing, because the raw materials for the knowledge that you need for change and other stuff are not going to be found in the same academic discussions because it's just not there. It's lacking. Okay, it is learning how to stand alone, unpopular, and sometimes reviled, and how to make common cause with those others identified as outside the structures in order to define and seek a world in which we can all flourish. It is learning how to take our differences and make them strengths. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us temporarily to beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. And this fact is only threatening to those women who still define the master's house as their only source of support. Yeah, and this is a great point. You can't, this is like the ship of this is actually a ship of Theseus. How do you rebuild a ship at sea? Well, you can do it plank by plank, but are you really going to radically change the ship if you can only move one little thing at a time? You're still dealing with the structure of the ship of Theseus at that point. And maybe you can make slow changes over time, but you're really not going to dismantle the ship all at once, or you are afraid you're going to drown. Those sentences are, yeah, this is very well written. So, like, this is really making an excellent point about theory change in philosophy and, I guess, politics. It's that if you are trying to work within the system, you're never going to be able to overthrow it. And this goes back to scientific revolutions. You need a paradigm shift is what people need. If you're working within a system, you will be able to do maybe great things, but you're not going to overthrow the current system. You need new data, you need unconventional data if you are trying to really change what is going on in your area. But like this holds, and this is a sociological point. Tom Kuhn was a sociologist of like science in the structure of scientific revolutions, and this is the same thing over in the politics area. You cannot get a paradigm shift in politics if you are just working within the same system. Okay, poor and third world women know there is a difference between the daily manifestations and dehumanizations of marital slavery and prostitution because it is our daughters who line 42nd Street. New York. 42nd Street is not like this anymore, don't worry. It's disgusting in other ways. The black panelist's observation about the effects of relative powerlessness and the differences of relationship between black women and men from white women and men illustrates some of our unique problems as black feminists. If white American feminist theory need not deal with the differences between us and the resulting difference in aspects of our oppressions, then what do you do with the fact that the women who clean your house and tend your children while you attend conferences on feminist theory are, for the most part, poor and third world women? What is the theory behind racist feminism? Yeah, and this is clearly angry too. Like you said, this is great sentences. Like the idea that you're just going to say, what is the theory behind racist feminism? Like, that's like venom. Like, that's just like, that's a really good jab. Like, you've got racist feminism, and what's that theory? Oh, yes, I'd like to know your theory there. Yeah. In a world of possibility for us all, our personal visions help lay the groundwork for political action. The failure of the academic feminists to recognize difference as a crucial strength is a failure to reach beyond the first patriarchal lesson. Divide and conquer in our world must become define and empower. Yeah, it is so good. So it's like, yeah. So I guess to, bring this back to my stupid theory, this is like an anti-intellectualist argument, really. It's the saying, look, if you are just going to retreat into the theory, you're missing all the actual phenomena. And because if you're just locking yourself away in the ivory tower, but that is the racism here, because you're missing the actual phenomena out in the world. Stockton says you have two hierarchies. Patriarchy means supremacy, and matriarchy that can be women's supremacy, and yeah, those could be considered master's tools, but I would be critical of it because by being judgmental of these two systems, you can potentially support more irritation and conflict. Yeah, I mean, this is a polemic, so it's like, yes, yeah. And conservative says, and we wonder why feminism spawned intersectionalism. I don't think we are wondering why. We know why. It's like, yes, exactly, conservative. Like, we know why. Okay. Why weren't other black women and third world women found to participate in this conference? Why were 2 phone calls to me considered consultation? Am I the only possible source of names of black feminists? And although the black panelist paper ends on an important and powerful connection of love between women, what about interracial cooperation between feminists who don't love each other? Polemic, what's up, Steve? Is just an angry thing. Like, polemical just means being angry. So, like, like those angry comedians, they're like polemical comedians when they're like yelling at stuff. So, like Bill Burr, when he's like yelling about politics, that's a polemic. Yeah. Yeah, you're speaking dialectically? Fine, yeah. Yeah, conservative got it right. It's between 2 poles. So it's like a polemic is like one side arguing with the other side, I guess, is polarizing, is another way to put it. So, yeah, polemic. History of words. Ara says, but I think it's important that poor black women in New York City are asking what good is your rich white educated feminism if it means that I'm still cleaning the house and looking after the kids and you're not even noticing how I live or the problems that I face. Yeah, yes. I guess, I mean, it's like to say that like the academics, even who are sort of ignoring the help, are not doing good work. I mean, that's not always true. Sometimes they are doing good work and they are trying to lift everyone up. You can't solve all the problems at once. So it's like, you may be trying to solve some problems and eventually rising tide raises all boats. Is that always going to work? No, of course not. But what's up, Exile? But yeah, obviously the author here, Lorde, is pissed because she's pointing out how stupid and minimal effort was put in to actually attempting to get any other voices other than the typical academic ones in this conference. And so like she was feeling, it looks like they put in token effort, and like she was like token angry black woman or whatever. And so she decided, well, she's going to be very angry and she's going to hit back. And so good on her. But like that's kind of how I feel like what's happening here is like, oh, you asked for a token angry black woman. Well, this token angry black woman is going to deck you now. And that's kind of what this feels like. This is a really, like, this is like cross the jaw style hook punch against these people. Ara says, agreed. In a perfect world, we do have to make compromises, but it's tough when certain demographics are the ones always taking the downsides and not getting many of the upsides. Yeah, and that's the trouble. We've had this discussion in the community here on the philosophy side of Twitch. Is like, well, who gets to be angry now? Because there's a lot of things to be angry about, and it's like, well, do you want to get change, and who has to make a deal, and who has to cut a deal with other people now? And who gets to like be angry and protest, and who has to cut a deal. And it's like, who am I to say like where the line is to be drawn? Exile. Well, a lot of people are angry nowadays. It's I think I've told this story before, but back during the Black Lives Matter protest here in the States, and I'm in New York, and there weren't really where the Black Lives Matter protests were getting much more violent in different parts of the country. It wasn't like right here. And so this guy came up to me, a worker at my job, and he was talking to me about this, and I could see that he wanted me to agree with that the Black Lives Matter protests were like, obviously they're irrational and that they're destroying their own stuff and it was terrible. And I was like, dude, I'm Jewish. We kind of got it beat into us when we were younger or whatever, that the government might not come for you today, it might not come for you tomorrow, but at some point it will come for you. And at that point, you have to make a decision. You're going to run or you're going to fight. It's happened a lot in the past, and what are you going to do at that point? So it's like, you have to realize you can't be trusting the government. And it's not for me to tell other people where the line is, because at a certain point, you're going to start losing people. And how many people are you willing to lose to play nice for a while and hope things get better? So it's like, do I agree with them smashing up and rioting? No. But then again, I understand. So it's like, I don't get to make the call for other groups of people. What is enough? What is enough abuse that community is going to take? So yeah. Just become the government. Just get all the power. Like, why didn't these people just get all the power? Exactly. Dame Karen said, hey, what's up? Keep in mind, the police got violent, not the people protesting also high. Yeah. So, again, do I know exactly? Was it instigators? Was it some asshole? Because there's always assholes. Was it the police? Sure. But, who am I to say who's in the right? People have to be able to draw the line somewhere. I'm not even I don't even care about the violence. The violence was beside the point. People have to be able to say no more of us getting abused. And then there's going to be some eggs broken. That's how change happens, usually. That's the whole point of this paper, is that you can't just play nice with these people. Eggs do have to be broken if you want to make an omelet. If you want to get something done, not everything's going to be so clean. The problem is, how exactly does this play out, and what is an acceptable level of breakage? I don't know. Steve says, it's good to see the process in Trump happening now. Similar situation. Yeah. And, it's going to take some time, because Trump's going to do stuff, like his whole group of people are going in power are going to do stuff, and then it's going to have an effect. And Trump is famous for, just running his mouth. So people are going to be like, oh, he's just running his mouth. Eventually it's going to have an effect, and then we have to see what the backlash is going to be. And we're starting to see that because he's trying, they're starting to be like, oopsie, sorry, we didn't mean to fire thousands of veterans. It's like, okay, yeah, and they're going to be like, oopsie, and they're going to try to walk some of it back. But yeah, we'll have to see. It is having an effect, exactly. So, but people in this country, I wish we were the French. I so wish we were the French and would just block roads, protest immediately. But for us, it takes a long time. So we'll see what happens. Dame says, interesting what will happen with him in Ukraine versus Russia. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, he just always seems like who's going to line his pockets more, because he's just like, oh yeah, give me all the rare earth minerals you have. And Russia's like, yeah, we'll give you rare earth minerals. And Ukraine's like, no, you can't have all the rare earth minerals. And it's like, why would you believe what Russia's going to say? Why? And it's like, someone has to tell him that, Russia's lying. But who knows what he's going to do with that. Dame says, Macron went to tell him to support Ukraine. I can't see him listening. Yeah, but again, he's listening to money. He's not listening to Emmanuel. Sockner says, I think most of this can be under the umbrella of minority Olympics, and intersectionality can bring in consideration that trophies won groups over the rest, which is why I'm so critical, has diluted the financial issues, opportunities of the workers. Yeah, so things get messy. And people act like sports is somehow pure, but it just doesn't work that way. Okay, so Iris is responding. You've never been more glad that you're not in the U.S. Yeah, I mean, other places are great too. Macron was pointing out it was a gift to Ukraine. Yeah, I was gonna say it depends where you are, Exile. It depends on how your place is going too. I went to a philosophy talk where the guy was Argentinian, and they've got Milei down there, and Milei is their version of Trump, so it's they've got their own mess. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you guys can argue your politics. Let me get through this paper. Yeah, the German election, yes, was interesting. Again, but I don't know enough about European or German politics to really understand what's going on. All right. Anyway, this article continues. In academic feminist circles, the answer to these questions is often, quote, we did not know who to ask, end quote. But that is the same evasion of responsibility, the same cop-out that keeps black women's art out of women's exhibitions, black women's work out of most feminist publications, except the occasional special third world women's issue, and black women's texts off your reading lists. But as Adrienne Rich pointed out in a recent talk, white feminists have educated themselves about such an enormous amount over the past 10 years. How come you haven't also educated yourselves about black women and the differences between us, white and black, when it is key to our survival as a movement? Dame Karen says, also worth pointing out that the Black Lives Matter protests were largely instigated by the utterly disproportionate number of black people being murdered by police. Yes, absolutely. Dame Karen says, Germany looking at election far-right government for the first time since, well, you know who. Yeah, so they're going to be, the conservatives, I thought, won. I don't think they're going to do a far-right government, but it's definitely not going to be left. Yeah, but I don't know these things. All right. Women of today are still being called upon to stretch across... Oh, what's up, Adam? Women of today are still being called upon to stretch across the gap of male ignorance to educate men as to our existence and our needs. This is an old and primary tool of all oppressors to keep the oppressed occupied with the master's concerns. Now we hear that it is the task of black and third world women to educate white women in the face of tremendous resistance as to our existence, our differences, our relative roles in our joint survival. This is a diversion of energies and a tragic repetition of racist patriarchal thought. Simone de Beauvoir once said, it is in the knowledge of the genuine conditions of our lives that we must draw our strength to live and our reasons for acting. Racism and homophobia are real conditions of all of our lives in this place and this time. I urge each one of us here to reach down into that deep place of knowledge inside herself and touch that terror and loathing of any difference that lives there. See whose face it wears. Then the personal as the political can begin to illuminate all our choices. And that's it. Yeah. Okay, you're looking forward to rating this? Okay, well that's what we're doing, because that is it. It was not, the rest of this I believe is just, yeah, this is just a this is just the magazine title. So it's just a title page. So that's it. So as always, we rate these works of philosophy here. So this was The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the House, and as always, feel free to rate. Brain Dance if you thought it was fun, gave you some fun ideas, made brain dance. Not extreme, existential artistic drama. This might count as existential, actually. Not too much artistic, but I mean, it did touch on works of art slightly, but mostly writing, but it was kind of existential, don't know. Nagoro for deeper ancient ideas. Nog Knife slicing and dicing arguments. She did come in with some argumentation too, which is interesting in this area. Like, she brought up the ways in which, not just that, like, oh, we were neglected, but she brought in what was the sort of the structures of the argumentations that were being used. Like, survival is not an academic skill. I was looking for like a little pull quote here, but it's like, what is the source of the knowledge getting pulled here in the politics? All right, so maybe they're slicing and dicing. Nog navel gazing only for academics. Nog turd, all style, no substance, still poop underneath. And nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. You also can use the global vote yay and vote nay from Twitch, and my vote meh. And oh yeah, I didn't mention this earlier, but there is an overall rating. If something's in the green, the overall score goes up. In the red, it goes down. And if you do vote meh, it kind of gets into the middle. Yeah, Harris says yay, brain dance, and a scream. All cost money. Got the knife and a scream. Exile gave it a knife. Dame Karen says Audre Lorde has been fighting and writing for a long time. Yeah, this was really well written. You can see she knows what she's doing with her words. Like, these are well crafted. Oh yeah, like this one sentence I highlighted here. I know you can't see behind the rating screen. What is the theory behind racist feminism? I mean, that is such a well-crafted sentence and question in this area that, like, because it's short, it's to the point, and you realize there is definitely racist feminism out there, and there is going to be theory behind it, and it's going to obviously be the, like, sort of a very uncomfortable question to answer. So, yeah. Turd, sock now does not like it, and the navel gazing, yeah. If you don't fix that sock now, I'll fix it for you later. Okay, you fixed it. Cool, thank you. Fourth wave feminism for the win, yeah, and then a kappa. Yeah, these are things I don't know, like the differences between the waves of feminism. So yeah, I don't know this stuff. But let's see, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna give it a brain dance. It was just too much fun, really, for that. I'm gonna give it a nog scream. Oopsie, that's not nog scream. I'm gonna give it a nog knife too. Fuck it. The terror at the end is worth this scream for sure. Yeah. I mean, this is like, it is talking about the positions of people in the world, and how it matters. So this has got the existential flair to it. So yeah. I mean, it's really, you know, it's really funny. There's a footnote here. So they're saying, look, there's actually someone who does publish works by women of color before it was fashionable, and the editor put it in. So it's like right here. I know you guys can't see it, but like right here is like, no, there was somebody who wasn't as racist as the other people. Like, it's kind of funny that they were doing that. Oh yeah. So if anyone else wants to rate, 60 seconds left. Let me know. Dame Karen says an Australian writer, Ruby Hamad, wrote articles and a book about exactly this called White Tears, Brown Scars, I believe, if you're interested. You know, it's one of these things like, this is not my area, but I'm happy to like look at this stuff sometimes, because every so often I do run into it. And like on Philosophy Roulette, I'd look at it too. Like, yeah, it's just, I'm not going to be the person to go do, like, I've touched on feminist philosophy because someone asked me to look at it once, and like, you know, I think I wrote something halfway okay, but like, this really isn't my game. I have not read Rupi Kaur, Exile. He's also Palestinian. If you haven't, please don't. Okay. Well, I have not then. Yeah. There are lots of stuff I don't know. Save myself the pain. You know, every so often there's people with excellent ideas that are terrible writers. This person is a good writer. They really had some good sentences. They made their point in just a few pages. Like, it's really well done. And so it's like, it's impressive. So. Pop poet. Okay. Yeah. So this is the question. It's like, this is just an anti, in like the grand scheme of these things, this is an anti-intellectualist argument. It says, if you look at all the intellectualism that has been going into this stuff, it's been drawn on from the classic theories that have not worked for the demographics that it's supposed to be helping. And so the idea that you're continuing to do the same thing that doesn't work is insane. And even in making that, then they even threw in some really good jabs along the way about how other people have to develop the ways that they can like fight back themselves, in the discussion of focusing on how their differences can be useful to them. And that's interesting because, you know, usually in these areas we're trying to like do solidarity. Lorde is saying, no, the differences make us powerful, and that's a different kind of solidarity.